Good. Start all these out.
Why am I putting this away? I need this out. I don't know why.
You'll need to start a timer. These are timed.
Oh, wait. Hold on. These are timed?
Yeah, these are timed.
Have you been timing them?
No, I haven't.
Well, I don't know. Hopefully we've been hitting around 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, probably not. We've probably been hitting around like 28 minutes. What do you mean these? This is the first one and only one today.
Well, yeah, I'm just talking all the times
all
you've
the
been
time.
on. All the times you've been on.
We do these every Friday.
Not timing. Yeah, we do these. Come on, people.
Yeah,
we do
definitely.
these.
We have a lot of time to waste.
Yeah, we have plenty. We don't do anything.
Yeah.
We have a lot of time.
I wait all week to do this.
You do nothing throughout your week,
Yep.
and you're like, I cannot wait to spend 20 minutes with Ross.
It's been winter. It's been a slow winter.
15-minute Friday. It's not winter right now.
Yeah, it's summer. I know.
Well,
Who knows when it is?
yeah, who knows when this is really recorded?
Dawn right now.
It's
bright and early in the morning.
Dawn? Oh,
It's
okay.
7 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah, it sure is. I'm for sure up and ready to record a podcast.
Definitely. You are.
7 a.m. in the morning, 100%. Yeah, no, of course it's a Friday because this is a 15-minute Friday. Folks, welcome back to another episode of the What You Don't Hear podcast. Just as you heard me say, it's a 15-minute Friday edition. So whether you're listening to this on Friday or not, the goal here is to sit and chat with my esteemed guest, Josh Emerick, back on the podcast, returns once more. Josh, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I know you've been waiting all week, every single week when we record these on Fridays for this. But yeah, we're going to sit, we're going to chat about some things in a positive light. Hopefully, again, depending on, I guess, when you're listening to this. But the goal is to send you into the weekend with some positive motivation. If we can use some cool buzzwords there. I think those are good words to describe this. But yeah, talking about some subject specific here on the 15-minute Fridays. Josh, what is the subject of this yet again that you are back for?
We are going to talk about when to start your business.
This is a big one.
Yeah, this one's challenging.
It is. It honestly is. I'm interested to see kind of what we come up with here, what we just riff off the dome, and see what this is, because this is sort of a question that we get asked. I'm not going to say a lot, like we're some business gurus, but it does come up relatively often.
I think we're pretty open about a lot of things. So that whether that be friends or associates or people who know us, I think feel pretty comfortable talking to us about this, which is why that dialogue gets opened up so often. It's not because we're business gurus, but I think it's because people understand that we set a lot of goals. We talk about a lot of things. We try to create a lot of things.
Yes,
I think that creates a lot of comfort. Oddly enough, I feel like there's kind of two sides to this. I think there's the people who are very excited to start a business and don't know where to begin. And then I think there's people who are like actively creating a business and have no idea that they are.
Right. Okay. So let's dig into that. So yeah, as you said, it's something that gets brought up a lot because we love to share information. That is, of course, the point of these 15-minute Fridays. So I'm going to throw 15 minutes on the clock, and it begins now. So you want to take it away? Yeah,
I'll take it away. A lot of these conversations, I think, come up more often than not. Someone comes to us like, I have this great idea. And I want to see this thing exist. I have this business idea, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, like not every conversation goes this way. And some of these ideas are really good. And it's like, sometimes it's coming to us for advice of like, hey, what would you do? How would you start this? And sometimes it's like in a lane of things that we have no like understanding of the industry. Yeah. But I think there's a general like blanket of things that you can kind of apply to any of that. And I think it starts with the whole who and why, you know, of like who you are, why you want to do what you want to do. Right. And seeing if it aligns with you. If your only motivation is money and to like kind of get rich, short term, long term, like versus in that scenario, I think it's really hard to focus on the why. Now, if you want to make a lot of money to better your family, to better your situation, that's a little bit different. You have a purpose to why you want that money, and it makes it a little bit easier. And who you are, you know, so like what is special about you, I think is what can help you align with the type of business you are. Yeah. That you want to create. Yeah. And so that was actually kind of a lead point that I wanted to make is I think a lot of the times, you know, we get asked, you know, it's how do I start my own thing?
right? How do I do this? How do I make a business? How do I make my own brand? And I think sometimes, as cheesy as this might sound, you might need to not look for that specific answer, but actually change the question. And kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, it's not so much the how, but the why, right? Ask why instead of how. Ask why you want to do this. And that's kind of what you were talking on, right? Yeah. So it's kind of the same point of just, figuring out what is the purpose in which you're doing it. What are your goals? What's the real, and again,
are you going to change something in the process of creating this thing?
Right.
And even the how is kind of boring. How do I start a business?
Right.
All right. File with the state. Make a business plan. Find investors if that's what you want to do.
Right.
That's really boring. We can't talk about anything there, and I can't help you. I can't help you in that, and just go do these things. You're not actually going to walk away with anything that really feels empowering, or I see what the next steps are and I can actually go forward. If you start to ask that why, then it's you get into a layer deeper, or you get them into a layer deeper of maybe I haven't thought this all the way out.
Right. And it's that kind of what you were saying, the why and also the who. Who are you doing this, right? And that's it. I think those things go hand in hand, realistically. The why are you doing it and the who you are, again, that all kind of adds up into the purpose of it, right? And I think a big thing with it is being able to kind of identify those things early on before you're just having to react to everything that you've just jumped into, right? It's, oh my God, I've started a brand, I've started a business, and I'm not sure I'm not sure what I'm doing. And you actually kind of noted this. And while we can't hold anybody's hand through it, you mentioned making a plan, right? But not, let's not talk on the subject of making a business plan, a legitimate blah, 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 blah. Let's just talk about just a plan in general, right? Yeah. We're not the buzzwords of marketing plan, business, blah, blah, blah. What would you say on the subject of, making a plan? Because I think that's a huge part of, if you want to start a brand, or you want to brand yourself, or you want to start a company, a business, whatever you want to call it, you need to go into it being proactive and having a plan.
Yeah. I can start with, kind of second business, the wedding business.
Yeah.
When we were forming that, initially, I saw it as video for weddings.
Let's real quick.
Preserve.
Yeah, Preserve. Let's give it a shout out there.
When we were creating Preserve, the biggest driver for that was, not enough wedding videos are being made, and good wedding videos to tell story. I believe love has power. So my why, one, I love love. That's who I am. Mm-hmm. I love talking about love. I love helping my friends with relationships. So to me, I think there's a lot of power in story. And love isn't about the happy-go-lucky side. It's the grit that comes into it. So the why was, let's get these stories out there to inspire other people. I didn't see this as clear as day back then. But more than anything, I thought this could really help save marriages. This could help inspire future generations. So my why was, let's show an authentic version of what love is.
Right.
The plan for that wasn't so I'm just going to start the business. The plan was, I had someone reach out to me and said, I need wedding photography. I wasn't interested in wedding photography, but I knew the couple. I knew them very well. I thought their story would be good. I knew that they could speak well. And I was like, I'll tell you what, we'll do the wedding photography if we can do video for you. Totally for free. I'm I just want to create this business. I let them in on my plan. Mm-hmm. And we used that first project, and that landed us 7 projects the next year, because I knew if we did it right, we did it the way that we wanted to, that was part of the plan.
Right. And so in that plan, also a part of that was knowing your audience, right? So as much as you need to know yourself and know your purpose and know, the kind of the brand you're building from the inside out, you have to know your audience. You have to understand your audience. And I know that sounds like such a duh thing to say. Of course, when you're starting a brand or a company, you need to know who you're selling to. But I do think that that's almost a fundamental thing that a lot of people overlook. Yeah. Is they don't even know who they're really trying to sell to. The excitement of making a company or a brand, a business, whatever, is so much cooler and exciting just to kind of get to, right? Rather than figuring out, of course, the why, the who, all that sort of stuff, but really, who is your target audience? Mm-hmm. And why is that your target audience? So with the example of Preserve, you did know from the start. It was, well, I want, these couples, and I want people who want to tell stories, and I want people who want this authentic version of wedding video and photo and stuff. It's not just like wanting to make a wedding video and photo company because a lot of other creatives tell me it's how you can make money in the business, brother. Like there was a purpose to it.
Yeah, and there was a couple of things that were going to, like one, I knew exactly. I was very clear on what it was that I wanted to create, the type of stories I wanted to create.
Yeah, and you knew your product.
I knew my product.
Yeah.
I just needed a chance to show someone what that could be before it could really bloom into exactly what we saw.
Right.
It was very easy because I knew that idea, so I could bet on myself because I was so passionate. Like, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. Here's how it's going to all work. I just need someone to buy into this. So I used the leverage of, I promise you, this is going to be dope. This is going to be everything you love. And it worked out very, very well because I was so sure of the plan that I had in place.
So that sort of plays into the idea of using your resources well, right? Understanding what's within your network that can provide you maybe some extra steps into figuring this plan out, right? Because you said, cool, I have this couple. They asked us about photography, and you knew that, okay, this is a resource that I can build my product off of to then have a proof of what this business is and start that as a foundation. So I think that's another fundamental thing, that when you're going about trying to start your own business, look into your network. And I'm not using network in the buzzword, hot topic subject, cool guy hashtag on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm not saying network in that way. I'm saying literally just your actual network. Who's around you? Is it a couple? Just like your example, and I think that's an easy one to build off of.
Yeah, we had already worked with them.
Right.
We knew them.
And we
very
knew them.
Deeply.
And these weren't, major, these weren't business people. These weren't, so we're not talking networking in that sense. It was simply just people we knew that we knew we could build our product off of and base that around. And they gave us the freedom to really do that. So again, using those resources and finding those and understanding that sometimes it goes back to the, don't be afraid to ask for a favor. Don't be, you know what I mean? Like the answer is always no, and if you don't ask, so it's reaching out and finding those things of, hey, who can help me build this? And it doesn't have to be they join the company. It doesn't have to be they invest. I think really quick, that's a thing that a lot of people I think immediately jump to when they're thinking about starting a company, starting a brand, a business. Oh my God, I need investors.
I think the biggest problem, even outside of investors, is just the financial in general. They get too focused on what the number should be. Can some investors, I need to raise X amount of money, or I think I need this amount of money to actually get things started. The same can be said for selling to not your audience. If you're like, I have this great vision for a company, I need to sell to 8 people. Well, let's just sell to 1. Let's get someone bought in. Let's make proof of this vision.
Yeah.
And then it's a lot easier to sell because 1, you've proved it to yourself, but 2, you've proved it to another person who can advocate for you now. So with investors, it's kind of the same thing. Like, investors can be really great. We don't have a whole lot of experience with that, but let's be honest. If someone was going to invest money into us, we need to prove to them that we can make the money back. So let's think for a second. If we're so new in the business, do we want the pressure of I need to make money back on an idea that maybe I'm not super sure on?
That you don't even have completely fleshed out. Again, have you went through the checklist that we've been running through, right? Do you know your why? Do you know your target audience? Do you know your product?
Even with our product, I was super confident in the story and the impact that it could make. But we had so many things to flesh out over the first couple years to get to the quality standard that we had for ourselves. So it wasn't like we hit the ground running and everything was perfectly fine. Nope. We did the first one, we were like, here's how we improve. We did the next one, here's how we improve, and so on and so on. So do you want to add that extra stress of like, I got to deal with making an investor's money back, and I don't even have a full idea right now.
Right. And
am I even prepared to have that type of stress?
And I think that plays into, what value is your brand and or product adding to whoever you're trying to sell it to, whether that be an investor, whether that be other team members, whether that be, your target audience. What is the value that you're giving? Because, if you're trying to, and I'm not saying not to do this, but an example, if you're trying to make a athletics wear company that is literally just the same exact thing as Nike or Under Armour.
Yeah.
You're kind of in a hard value field there of, well, the value is already there. Is it fun to maybe have the idea of, I'm going to make my own athletics brand. That's so cool. That's so fun. Of course. And you can find your own unique way to add value. And that's kind of the point, is when you're competing with something like that already is established and it doesn't matter. what is your value, right?
Yeah.
What is the value that you're really providing?
Your uniqueness. What makes you unique as a person?
Yes.
To where you can implement that into your company.
Right.
Now, if we're going to talk about social media for a second, like people can investigate brands easier now than ever. Mm-hmm. And people want to know the face of the brand even more than the brand.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're going to start a company, what are your values and how do they bleed into the company?
Right. And I think when you kind of mirror those things and you let your values bleed into the company, like you said, I think that feeds into just letting it grow organically. Right. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you can give good example again from Preserve of letting it grow organically. Like, yes, that, growing organically does not mean, folks, to just not do anything and let it happen and just see what happens. Of course, you got to be making the plan. You got to be putting the effort in. You got to be knocking things off the to-do list, but doing that in an organic way, right? Not worrying about being so salesy, not worrying about the instant gratification of if my business doesn't blow up in a month, then it's a failed thing. Right?
Yeah,
it's a failed experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment and test those waters and see, have those trial and error periods where you can sit and figure out how this best works and grows organically. I think if I can keep on this rant for a second, a good example that I can personally give is the Bloom division, right? So the music marketing agency that I run, that I created, right? It's a brand that I sat on for a long time. I had the idea, right, and the belief of like, oh, this would be so fun to focus on marketing and content creation for independent artists, and it's so fun. Oh man, I wish I could just make a brand for it. Why can't I make the brand? I made the logo and I had everything set well in advance, and I just sat on it. Now, the reason I sat on it is because I actually was not confident in the fact that I could launch that brand. I didn't think that I could turn it into a real company. However, and this is something I think you actually said pre-pod earlier, before, folks, sorry, we do talk about this a little bit before we record. I think you mentioned this of sometimes it can so organically happen that you might not even know that you have started a company, right? You've started one, or you own a brand or a company, and you might not even know it yet. So that's kind of what I did with Bloom. Is I was sitting and I was so caught up on like, oh, it wouldn't be a really cool big company. It wouldn't be this awesome marketing agency that I would love for it to be at the top of the game. What I was ignoring was for months on months and possibly years, I had a steady flow of clients doing exactly what I wanted to do with the brand every single month. So that at its core is all you really need for a successful business, right? Is you need the client, you need the audience, you need your product. Here I am sitting, churning out all this product, making all these, new relationships with new clients and building this really solid foundation. And I couldn't even and not in a negative way, but I just couldn't identify that.
You couldn't grasp that you already started.
Yeah.
You were past the starting line.
Yeah, I had already went far enough in overthinking the process of I don't know if I can start a company when everything was sitting right in front of me. You know what I mean? And sometimes I get it. All it takes is, make it public on social media and then it really exists. But I was sitting with this clientele and the steady flow of work and my product is being used. It's the classic supply and demand sort of thing. The demand was consistently there. And I was actively supplying it. Well, you put those two things together and you have a business. Yeah. So sometimes identifying that is almost a weird process on its own.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people, if we're being honest, that are already doing the work that have no idea that they're even running a business.
I think you did that with JCP, right?
For sure. And I think there's a lot of people who think of themselves as just a freelancer or a specialist in a department. I'm like, you're dealing with client problems. You're dealing with sometimes hiring people already. You're already creating something bigger than just freelancing, than just doing a single service-based thing.
Yeah.
You're running a business. You're creating a culture. You're trying to grow something bigger. Call it what it is. It's hard to own that. And I think it takes a long time to say, yeah, I'm a business owner. That's a hard thing to own.
It's sometimes a hard thing because, the word entrepreneur and stuff and all that sort of stuff, it gets thrown around so much now. It's so easy to make a Facebook page and then throw CEO in your Instagram bio, right? So I think almost in a way, sometimes entrepreneur is a dirty word.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, yeah, I get it. You start companies, whatever, you make brands. But it's sometimes at the core, you're kind of already doing that. Even if you are an individual freelancer, that's something that you learned. you had built this culture. You had really built a brand that wasn't just a brand name. It was indeed an active, up and running company.
Yeah, when people are coming back to you or referring to you for more than just like high quality work or just your specialized skill, but like working with you is an experience, is this kind of like, process. I think you're already building a business right there.
Right.
Yeah, when you're getting more efficient in something that isn't just one specialized thing, that's when I think you've built a business.
Right. So I think all in all, to wrap up here, we have indeed hit our 15-minute time limit. So I think all in all, what it comes down to is, just make a checklist of things, honestly, figure out your why, figure out your purpose, figure out, of course, the fun parts of the logo and the branding and all that sort of stuff, right? Reach out to people in your network and working on the image and all that sort of stuff. But really digging down, figuring out who you are, what purpose you want to do that this company or brand provides, and do research. You know what I mean? Yeah. The internet exists, YouTube University, right? There are a ton of things, whether that person or people or entity or whatever is really in your personal network or not. Just do some research.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many resources. YouTube is one thing. The internet just has these vast amount of things. Like, there are podcasts, there are books, they're the people within your network, they're the friends of your friends. Yeah. Ask for a meeting. That can excel it really fast. You can go from like, this is a good idea to like, I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
or this is a good idea to like, hey, I'll help you get that idea the next step further, which might be the next person.
Totally have been there and learned that for sure. When you're sitting on something and you're like, I'm totally unsure if this is a thing and I don't really know how to do it. If you sit down and have a meeting and just speak things out loud with somebody and hear some advice and opinions or whatever, sometimes just speaking things to existence can help you figure out what your plan is. So, and the biggest thing with that, folks, I promise, I'm not lying. We are about to wrap up. I think the bigger thing in that is, we kind of already said it earlier, experiment, learn those trial and error processes. But all in all, the biggest thing that I feel like I can say is, if you are thinking about starting your own company, brand, business, whatever you want to call it, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the biggest thing, that if there's anything I would want anybody to take away from this, don't be afraid of failure. Welcome it.
I think there's two ways of that though too. It's like, when people hear failure, it feels very end.
Right.
Like, failures can be micro, and you can come back from
it can
those.
Be lessons.
Yeah, lessons. Like, we're big on the lessons, but like those small failures are what actually teaches you something in the process. You can go back and research. You can plan more. You can get to know people better. And ultimately, if it just does become a complete failure and you got to trash it, that's also okay too.
And that's also still something you learned.
You learned something in there. So when you start the next thing or try the next thing, this is not me. I don't want to go down this route again. Right. It might not all have been a failure.
Exactly. And so that's what it is to really learn to embrace that failure. So the final thing, I think, is just realistically, as you take this away and you go off into your weekend, you turn this podcast off, whether you liked it or you didn't, whatever it is, just know that if you're starting your own brand, you're starting your own company, you're going to talk to people like us, you're going to run it by somebody over coffee, or you're going to make a cool logo or whatever. The biggest thing you need to be aware of, out of all the things that we talked about, of course, don't be afraid to fail, but I think it's, make sure you're passionate. Be passionate about what you're doing. It is starting your own brand, starting your own business, your own company. I keep saying that. I'm just trying to make sure everybody gets the right examples. You know what I mean? Yeah. But whatever you're starting, make sure you're passionate about it, because it is an everyday thing, and you have to accept that it is an everyday thing. Even in the smallest ways, you can make tiny increments forward. You can make tiny steps forward. Not everything has to be a huge win. You don't have to get a huge social following. You don't have to sell out of your product. You don't have to book 100 things. Know that it's going to take, at the core, no matter what investments you make, no matter how many cool logos or cool network you build, or how many cool buzzwords you listen to us talk about in this podcast, at the core is an every single day thing that your passion has to be the driving force of. So take that however you will. Folks, I appreciate you listening to all of our rants all the time. Josh, I appreciate you coming back for another 15-Minute Friday.
And as always, thanks for having me.
I appreciate you always being down for these things. So really quick, if anybody else appreciates you being on these things, If they've heard you before, they know what's coming. But in case they don't know you very well, where can they find you on the internet to talk to you about all the cool business and brand things?
I am super active on the Instagrams.
Way active.
You can check me out at JM Emerick, EMERICK. DM me. Let's talk about this. Let's help make those business ideas a reality.
Let's bring those ideas into reality. And of course, as always, if you've liked what you've heard here, you can tag me around the internet at Who's Ross Theisen. Theisen is spelled Theisen. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, leave a rating and a review, and of course, follow the podcast around the net at WYDH Pod. And, as always, we're going to be back with more 15-Minute Fridays, of course. So, Josh, once again, thank you for being here. And folks, thanks for listening.